The Winchester rifle trembled in Ezra Blackwood's weathered hands as three towering women stepped from the shadows of his porch. Montana Territory, 1883. He'd ridden 4 days through bitter cold to claim this godforsaken ranch, and now these Amazonian sisters stood between him and everything he'd paid for. The tallest one, muscles rippling beneath her worn cotton dress, smiled with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight. "You must be the fool Wilhelm sold to," she said, her German accent thick as molasses. Her steel blue eyes traveled from his boots to his hat, appraising him like livestock at auction. The other two flanked her, one with healing hands that had delivered half the babies in 3 counties, another whose aim with a rifle made grown men cross themselves. All three stood well over 6 feet, their mixed German Crow heritage creating an intimidating beauty that made Ezra's pulse quicken despite the danger. "We've been waiting for you, Mr. Blackwood." The way she said his name sent ice through his veins. How did they know who he was? And what exactly were they waiting for? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to know where you're watching from in the comments below. Greta Zimmerman had arms that could swing a 20-pound sledgehammer for 12 hours straight. At 35, she was the blacksmith, the protector, and the iron will that held her family together. Her calloused hands gestured toward the deed in Ezra's trembling fingers. "That paper's worth about as much as Wilhelm's promises," she said, which is to say, nothing at all. Ezra had seen enough death in the war between the states to recognize predators when he met them, but something about these women felt different. Desperate, maybe. Hurt, certainly. "Ladies, I don't know what Wilhelm promised you, but I bought this land fair and square. Helena Territorial Office has the records." Ingrid, the middle sister, stepped forward. Her voice carried the gentle authority of someone who'd talked men through their dying moments. "Wilhelm promised to marry all 3 of us after our husbands died in the cholera outbreak of '81. We've been running this ranch ever since, waiting for him to make good on his word." The youngest, Astrid, laughed bitterly. Her rifle rested casually across her shoulder, but Ezra noticed her finger never strayed far from the trigger. Turns out, Wilhelm was better at making promises than keeping them. Sold our home out from under us and disappeared with your money. Ezra studied their faces, looking for the lie. Instead, he saw something that twisted his gut, the raw pain of abandonment. These weren't confidence artists or claim jumpers. They were women who'd been betrayed by a man they'd trusted. "Even if that's true," Ezra said carefully, "I can't be held responsible for another man's promises. You'll need to take that up with Wilhelm." Greta's laugh was harsh as winter wind. "Good luck finding him. Last we heard, he was headed to California with our life savings and your purchase money both. Left us with nothing but bills and a reputation as the crazy German sisters who think they can run a ranch." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the yard, and Ezra found himself studying these strange women more carefully. Their clothes were patched but clean, their boots worn but well-maintained. The ranch itself showed signs of careful attention, fences mended, buildings in good repair, horses that looked well-fed and content. "You've been maintaining this place yourselves?" he asked. Ingrid nodded. "Every fence post, every roof beam, every sick cow. Wilhelm was too busy drinking and gambling in town to bother with actual work. We kept this place running while he took credit and collected the profits." Astrid spat in the dust. "Right up until Klaus showed up asking questions about the timber rights Wilhelm sold him. Rights Wilhelm didn't actually have." The name Klaus sent a chill through the air that had nothing to do with the Montana autumn. Greta's jaw tightened, and Ezra caught something in her expression. Fear. Well hidden, but definitely there. "Who's Klaus?" he asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know. "Our dear brother," Greta said, her voice flat. "Klaus Zimmerman. Runs a logging operation out of Missoula. Has a talent for settling business disputes with dynamite and bullets." She met Ezra's eyes directly. Wilhelm sold him cutting rights to 300 acres of timber on the North Ridge. Timber that comes with the ranch Wilhelm just sold to you. Ezra felt his stomach drop. And Klaus isn't happy about the situation. "Klaus doesn't believe in coincidences," Ingrid said quietly. "He thinks you're either Wilhelm's partner in the swindle, or you're about to become another loose end he needs to tie up permanently." The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture that made Ezra's blood run cold. He hadn't just bought a ranch. He'd bought himself a target on his back. Wilhelm had played everyone involved, collecting money from Klaus for timber rights, then selling the entire property to Ezra without mentioning the prior agreement. "How long do I have?" Ezra asked. Astrid glanced at the horizon, where dust clouds suggested approaching riders. "I'd say about 10 minutes. Klaus doesn't believe in wasting time when money's involved." Greta stepped closer, close enough that Ezra could smell the coal smoke in her hair, see the genuine concern in her eyes. "You've got two choices, Mr. Blackwood. You can run, and maybe Klaus will be satisfied with burning down the ranch as a message, or you can stand with us and we'll fight together." Her hand brushed his arm, and Ezra felt something electric pass between them. "Either way, you should know. We don't abandon family. And anyone willing to stand against Klaus becomes family real quick." The approaching dust cloud resolved into 6 riders, Klaus Zimmerman at their head. Ezra had never seen the man before, but he would have recognized him anywhere. He had Greta's jaw, Ingrid's eyes, and Astrid's dangerous smile, all twisted into something cold and calculating. Klaus reined in his horse 20 feet from the porch, his men spreading out in a practiced formation that spoke of experience with violent negotiations. He was smaller than his sisters, but there was a coiled energy about him that reminded Ezra of rattlesnakes sunning themselves on rocks. "Well, well," Klaus said, his German accent more pronounced than his sister's. "The mysterious Mr. Blackwood. Wilhelm described you perfectly. Middle-aged, desperate, and stupid enough to buy a ranch without asking the right questions." Ezra kept his rifle lowered, but ready. "I asked plenty of questions. Just not the right man, apparently." "Oh, Wilhelm had answers for everything," Klaus laughed. "Right up until I caught up with him in Billings. Amazing how talkative a man becomes when you're dangling him off a hotel balcony by his ankles." The casual mention of violence sent ice through Ezra's veins, but he noticed something else, the way all 3 sisters tensed at their brother's words. Whatever their relationship had been, Klaus had crossed a line they couldn't forgive. "What do you want, Klaus?" Greta stepped between her brother and Ezra, her blacksmith's shoulders squared for conflict. "What I want, dear sister, is my $3,000. What Wilhelm promised me in timber rights before he sold the land to your new boyfriend here." Klaus's smile never wavered, but his hand rested casually on his gun butt. "Since Wilhelm is no longer in a position to honor his debts, I'll be collecting from his business partner." "I'm not Wilhelm's partner," Ezra said. "I'm just a man who bought a ranch." "Are you now?" Klaus tilted his head. "Funny thing is, Wilhelm told me a different story before he fell from that hotel balcony. Said he had a partner, someone who would honor all existing agreements and make sure everyone got what they were owed." Ezra felt the trap closing around him. Wilhelm had been even more clever than he'd realized, not just collecting money from multiple sources for the same property, but creating a scapegoat to take the fall when everything collapsed. "I never met Wilhelm until the day I bought this place," Ezra said. "Whatever he told you was a lie." "Maybe so," Klaus shrugged. "But lies are truth. I'm still out $3,000. And you're still standing on the property I was promised." His smile turned predatory. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign over the timber rights Wilhelm promised me, plus compensation for my time and trouble. Call it 5,000 total. And if I refuse?" Klaus glanced meaningfully at his men, who had casually shifted to surround the porch. "Well, accidents happen on the frontier. Houses burn. People disappear. Sometimes whole families just vanish." That's when Astrid made her move. Her rifle came up smooth as silk, the barrel centering on Klaus's chest before any of his men could react. "That sounds like a threat, brother dear." "Astrid?" Klaus's voice carried a warning. "You don't want to do this." "Don't I?" She tilted her head, and Ezra saw where she got that dangerous smile. "You just threatened to murder our guest in front of witnesses. That's poor manners, even for you." Klaus's men were reaching for their guns, but Ingrid appeared at the corner of the house with a shotgun, while Greta had somehow produced a rifle from inside the front door. The sisters moved with practiced coordination, covering different angles with the fluid efficiency of people who'd fought together before. "Stand down, Klaus," Greta ordered. "This is our home now, and Mr. Blackwood is our guest. You're not welcome here." "Our home?" Klaus's voice rose in genuine anger. "I'm your blood, Greta. These people are strangers." "Blood doesn't excuse what you've become," Ingrid said quietly. "How many people have died because of your business practices, Klaus? How many families have you destroyed?" For a moment, something flickered across Klaus's face. Hurt, maybe, or regret. But it vanished quickly, replaced by cold calculation. "You always were too soft, Ingrid. All three of you. That's why you need a man to protect you." "We don't need protection," Astrid said, her rifle never wavering. "We need family. Real family. Not some tin-pot tyrant who thinks violence solves everything." Klaus studied the standoff, weighing his options. His men were outnumbered and outgunned, caught in a crossfire they couldn't win. But Ezra could see the wheels turning in Klaus's mind, calculating angles and possibilities. "This isn't over," Klaus said finally, wheeling his horse around. "You think these strangers will stand by you when things get really bad? When winter sets in and the food runs out? When the loneliness starts eating at you again?" As Klaus and his men rode away, Ezra realized something had fundamentally changed. He was no longer just a man who'd bought a ranch. He was part of something larger now, something worth fighting for. That winter tested them all in ways Ezra had never imagined. The blizzard started in November and didn't let up until February, burying the ranch under 6 feet of snow and cutting them off from the outside world. Klaus had been true to his word about making things difficult. Supply deliveries mysteriously stopped coming, and their few neighbors grew suddenly reluctant to trade or visit. But somehow they endured. Greta's strength kept the fires burning and the animals fed. Ingrid's medical knowledge saved them from the fever that claimed half the county. And Astrid's hunting skills kept meat on the table when their stores ran low. Ezra found himself falling in love, not just with one of them, but with all three, in different ways. Greta's fierce protectiveness and quiet strength drew him like a magnet. Working alongside her in the forge, watching her shape red-hot iron into tools they needed to survive, he felt something he'd never experienced in his first marriage: true partnership. With Ingrid, it was different, softer. She had a way of seeing straight through his walls to the wounded man underneath. During the long winter evenings, she would sit beside him while he carved wood or mended tack, her presence as comforting as warm bread. She never pushed, never demanded, just offered a quiet acceptance that slowly healed wounds he'd carried since the war. And Astrid was fire and moonlight, dangerous and beautiful in equal measure. When she smiled at him across the dinner table or brushed past him in the narrow hallway, Ezra felt like a young man again. She challenged him, teased him, made him remember what it felt like to be alive instead of just surviving. By February, the unspoken understanding between all four of them had grown into something deeper. They were a family now, bound by shared hardship and mutual dependence. The question of marriage hadn't been spoken aloud, but it hung in the air, like morning mist, inevitable and patient. That's when the fever took Greta. It started as a simple cold, nothing that should have threatened a woman of her constitution. But the fever climbed higher each day, and Ingrid's medicines couldn't bring it down. For 3 days they took turns sitting beside her bed, watching her burn up from the inside. On the 4th day, she woke lucid for the first time since the fever started. Her hand found Ezra's, her grip still strong despite the illness ravaging her body. "Promise me something," she whispered, her voice raw from fever. "Anything. Take care of my sisters. They need someone who sees them as more than just curiosities or oddities. Someone who sees the beautiful, capable women they are." Ezra squeezed her hand. "Greta, you're going to be fine. The fever's breaking." She shook her head with effort. "I can feel it, Ezra. I'm leaving. But I'm not afraid, because I know you'll keep them safe." Her eyes found his, clear and determined even in her weakness. "Marry them both. Give them the family they deserve. The family Wilhelm promised but could never deliver. I can't. It's not legal." Greta managed a weak laugh. "Since when do we care about what's legal out here? We make our own rules, remember? Our own family." Her grip tightened with surprising strength. "Promise me." "I promise." Greta smiled, the expression transforming her fever-wasted face into something beautiful and peaceful. "Good. Now I can rest." She died that evening, just as the sun set behind the mountains. Ingrid and Astrid held her hands, while Ezra closed her eyes. In the flickering candlelight, she looked younger somehow, free of the burdens she'd carried for so long. They buried her on the hill overlooking the ranch, under a simple wooden cross Ezra carved with his own hands. The ground was still frozen, making the digging brutal work, but none of them would consider waiting for spring. Greta deserved her rest. Klaus came to the funeral, alone and unarmed. He stood at the back, while Ingrid read from their mother's German Bible, his face a mask of grief and regret. When it was over, he approached Ezra. "She was the best of all of us," Klaus said quietly. "I hope you know what you've lost." "I hope you know what you lost when you chose money over family," Ezra replied. Klaus nodded, something broken in his expression. "The timber deal is off. Keep your land. Keep my sisters. But if anything happens to them..." He didn't finish the threat. He didn't need to. As Klaus rode away, Ingrid slipped her hand into Ezra's. Astrid took his other arm, and together they watched the sunset paint the snow-covered mountains gold and red. "What happens now?" Astrid asked. Ezra thought of Greta's final request, of the promise he'd made. "Now, we build the family she wanted us to have. All of us. Together." Neither woman pulled away, and Ezra knew that somehow, despite all the loss and pain, they were going to be all right. They were going to be more than all right. They were going to be happy. Spring came late that year, but when it arrived, It brought new life to Willow Creek Ranch. Ezra married both sisters in a ceremony that would have scandalized proper society. Ingrid in her mother's blue dress, Astrid in a gown they'd sewn together from white cotton bought in town. The circuit preacher refused to perform the service, so they spoke their vows under the open sky, with only God and Greta's memory as witnesses. By summer, Ingrid was expecting their first child. By autumn, Astrid was as well. The ranch prospered under their combined efforts. Ezra's business sense, Ingrid's healing practice, and Astrid's reputation as a guide for hunting parties brought in steady income. They added rooms to the house, expanded the barn, and purchased cattle that would make them genuinely prosperous within a few years. Klaus kept his word about leaving them alone, though sometimes Ezra would spot riders on the distant ridges watching. Not threatening, just keeping an eye on family from afar. He'd chosen his path, but he hadn't forgotten who mattered. On winter evenings when the wind howled around the house and snow painted the windows white, Ezra would tell stories to his growing family. Stories of 3 remarkable women who had saved a broken man and taught him what love really meant. Stories of sacrifice and courage, of standing together against impossible odds. Years later, when those children had children of their own, they would tell the same stories around their own winter fires. The tale of 3 sisters who'd created their own family, their own rules, their own definition of love in a land where such things were possible. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the frontier. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from. I love hearing from folks all across this great country of ours.